Summer is here, and sports are finally back, which can only mean one thing. It's time to get back, relax, and make some cash. Everyone has to start somewhere, which is why you want to get off on the right foot by choosing an established book like MyBookie.ag. With all the major sports seasons just around the corner, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. Dynamic betting lines and a simple-to-use platform make the process easier than it's ever been. Create your account in just a few easy steps. Deposit and begin placing your bets. Sign up now using promo code COACHTALK to get your deposit matched 100% all the way up to $1,000. Plus an extra $25 free play. That's promo code COACHTALK. Use it to score yourself an extra piece of the pie. With MyBookie, you bet, you win, and most importantly, when you win, you get paid.
Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Sunday, August 2nd. I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I am joined by the one and only Mr. Andrew Hansen. How are you today, Andrew?
Doing pretty well, Coach. Had a solid night, one on both sites. Some of our key value plays came through. Kelly Olynyk, how about that?
Wow.
The first guy we talked about on the podcast yesterday went off in the fourth quarter, really paid off value. And then one of our big plays that we both used was fading AD and LeBron. They showed that they were just a little bit tired down the stretch against Toronto. Toronto was able to come through and win that game. That was nice.
Yeah.
So good day overall. Looking forward to another big Sunday slate here, 6 games, and should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, if it's ever been more present, listen to these podcasts as part of the process. Yesterday was one of those days where I was kicking myself because I talked about TJ Warren on the podcast a lot. He was in all my initial builds, and somehow, some way, it worked in reverse, and he didn't make my lineups. And I was just kicking myself. 53 real points, for God's sake. So anyway, what the good part about it is if you do listen to the podcast, then you follow us on Twitter throughout the day for news and such, and then jump in our Discord. Even though I didn't have him in my final lineup on Discord, you heard me, barking about him during the podcast. So, that's where you really need to use a few pivots. And we did have a few members that did that. But that just goes to show that, all of us will make a mistake once in a while with who we put in that final lineup. But to get the biggest picture and the most accurate picture is follow all those things. And usually you can come up with that combination to really take some stuff down. So I'm happy that I brought him forward, but not happy that I took him out at the end.
Yep.
So it happens. It happens to all of us. So anyway, we want to jump right in today because, again, we're going to have a full 12 straight hours of NBA. I mean, you can't beat it. So it's going to be starting at 2 Eastern, 1 Central. And we're here bright and early in the morning on Sunday. So we'll get this podcast out in plenty of time for you to check this out prior to making your builds. And the next step, like I say, follow us on Twitter, but then become a member, jump in. Even, if you want to just try us for a week, I think you'll see that we really take a lot of pride in how we handle every detail, answer every question of our members, etc. So go to dfscoachtalk.com and $25, you're in. You get all of our Major League Baseball lineups and all of course, our PGA. And then how about NBA? That's our home sport. So all of those are going on right now. And if you really enjoy it and stay long term, then the NFL jumps in with our pros there too. So we've got it covered from wall to wall. We would love if you would jump in there and check us out. Before we get started, I'd like to thank both of our presenting sponsors. We have MyBookie.ag. It is the place to go for all of your sports wagering and casino action, and they have upped the ante. If you go to MyBookie.ag and put in the promo code CoachTalk, no space, they are now matching that first deposit 100%, all the way up to $1,000. So you can get a free $1,000 basically to play with there. And you get a free $25 free play just for being a listener to DFS Coach Talk. And also our friends at tvg.com. It's where the world goes to bet and watch horse racing. They have an exclusive offer you can only get through us, and you can get it at tvg.com, or if you go straight to dfscoachtalk.com, look for the giant banner on there that says risk-free $300 play. You click on that, and it is exactly what it says. You put $300 in, you play it. If you lose, TVG gives it back. So 2 great offers from 2 great companies, and we would recommend you check them both out. All right, with no further ado, we're jumping right into this sucker today, man. And I know this has been painful at the beginning of the shows, but it's so necessary right now, because this is different times, a different world, different situations, and we need to review the player news and injuries. It takes like maybe 5 minutes here at the front of the show, but it's extremely important that you take some notes, or these remind you of things that you didn't know were going on, so that when we are breaking these out, you understand what all of our preparation time was done at reformulating these lineups, usage, player minutes, the whole 9 yards. So without delaying, let's just get into this. I'll go as quickly as possible. Andrew, if you have anything that you want to state while I'm going through it, just feel free to jump in there. All right. It's long, but it's important. Okay, Alex Len is out. He's still coronavirus situation. Marvin Williams is back for Milwaukee, though. He's going to get to play. He's one of the new signee guys, so it'll be interesting to see him in a Bucks uniform. Connaughton and Bledsoe still both remain out today, so that will affect that whole rotation big time. So keep an eye on those guys. Doubtful is Marco Bellinelli. Bryn Forbes remains out for San Antonio. Jamal Crawford they're not sure if he's going to play or not. He's 50-50. Definitely will have an effect on that game. It's just a conditioning thing for Crawford. Not sure if he's in or out, so that's a note we got to keep an eye on. Wes Awundo, same situation with Orlando, so we need to stay on top of that one. We do know Kurucs is playing and playing pretty well. Dame had a great game first game out. He is going to play again. He's looking like normal Dame to me. We know Eric Gordon's out for a couple of weeks with a twisted ankle. Other guys that are in that you may have heard different rumblings about, Austin Rivers with Houston, Nazir Little with Portland, Aaron Baines with Phoenix, and of course, De'Aaron Fox had a monster game with Sacramento in the first game, and and Harrison Barnes is also back after going through COVID-19. Tremont Waters is going to play. Russell Westbrook's fine. Guys that, if you didn't hear they were out, I want to mention again, Marvin Bagley not playing for Sacramento. Justice Winslow, a pretty bad hip injury. He's out for the whole bubble. Thomas Bryant is playing. Trey Lyles remains out. And then here's a couple of guys to take note of. Jabari Parker for Sacramento is in today. Buddy Hield is in. For Brooklyn, just mentions again for people that maybe just are playing today, missed the first few days. Taurean Prince is out. Spencer Dinwiddie out. Bradley Beal out. In for Memphis, Brandon Clark, who had a really nice first game, along with his running mate, Jaren Jackson Jr., who was terrific in the first game. Jakob Poeltl, fantastic first game. He was like an 8X guy, and he's in. Guys that are remaining out are Caleb Swanigan from Portland, Thabo Sefolosha from Houston, and guy that I had in 100% of my lineups and played terrific in that OT game, Zach Collins. He's still pretty cheap. And Yusuf Nurkic looked like an all-star, man.
Yeah, he did.
Really played well. He's playing again today. Others that you may not have heard of, if it's repetitive, I apologize, but DeAndre Jordan isn't at the bubble. Neither is Wilson Chandler or Willie Cauley-Stein from Dallas or Nicholas Claxton from Brooklyn. Big loss, I think, personally, for Portland. Trevor Ariza is not going to be at the bubble, nor is Courtney Lee for Dallas, Davis Bertans for Washington, Kelly Oubre for Phoenix, LaMarcus Aldridge for San Antonio, or for your favorite, Kevin Durant from Brooklyn.
Not
I'm
my
just
favorite.
I know, I'm just teasing. So that's a lot to absorb, but again, wanted to do the reset for you because it's been a little hectic, and here we are on a Sunday, 4 days into this, and that's sort of where everything stands. So that gives you an idea, and that's what's been, Andrew and I have been up in the wee hours going back and forth with suggestions and minutes projections and usage projections, and all of that goes into this to give us what we feel is a real edge. We don't think, especially right now, specifically, that optimizers are the answer because this is such a unique situation, and to hand build and see what's going on in all these scenarios, it is challenging and it takes time, but truthfully, we feel it's worth it, and it is the way to take some big tournaments down. All right, we're going to dive in. I'll give you the mybookie.ag odds, and then we're going to let the man Andrew Hansen break this down. He's pretty hot right now, so we want to keep that streak going. The first game on the docket is the Washington Wizards and the Brooklyn Nets. So talk about tough luck teams here that with missing all their guys. Here you go. So generally in these type of scenarios, you can find some of the best plays. So the mybookie.ag, that game is at 1 Eastern, noon Central.
2 Eastern.
I'm sorry, 2 Eastern, 1 Central. I forgot I switched my times on here to the Central so that I don't mess it up. And I did. All right, so that first game, Washington and Brooklyn. Brooklyn is a favorite, which is, I didn't think they would be a favorite in any of the 8 games with all these subs. But they are the favorite, and it's a pretty healthy 233.5 over under. So give us the nuggets on this Wizards-Nets game.
Right. So I do want to have some exposure to this. High total. Washington is bad defensively. They're 29th on the season, obviously missing a lot of key guys. So I'm looking at LeVert and Jared Allen. I'm going to go back to the well with these guys. They didn't quite get explosive games in their first one out. It was sort of a strange game. Orlando, they didn't play that many minutes. I think LeVert will have more success against Washington's defense. Same thing for Allen. And on the flip side, you could look at Thomas Bryant. Centers generally do pretty well against Brooklyn, and he's under 5K. Took 4 3-pointers in the first game, which I like. He's being aggressive. If he's going to be shooting from the outside and doing everything else in the paint, I could get some exposure to him. Napier is worth considering at 5.4. I don't know if this is a spot where he's going to smash the value there. But I'm kind of going back and forth between him and Ish Smith to get in some of my lineups. Ish Smith is only 3.8 on DraftKings, and he went for 17, 4, and 7 in the first game, 31 fantasy points. So talking about like a 9x return.
Yeah.
And so, thinking about this matchup here, Chiozza, I'm guessing Chiozza will guard Napier. He's fast. He may be one of the few guards who can kind of neutralize Napier with that quickness. So that's why I think I may pivot and use a little bit of Ish Smith.
Interesting. That would be definitely something that is contrarian, I think, anyway. A couple of things. We're on a 6-game slate, so we can be a little bit more picky. We've got 12 teams playing, and we're, the nice thing about the bubble is nobody in there, knock on wood, has tested positive. What we're preparing for is really taking place. I mean, I provide some baseball lineups as well, and I'll tell you what a headache that is with the games that are in and out, and then you have the weather on top of it. I mean, it's just, baseball is such a train wreck right now. We've talked about it on yesterday's show, but I don't think they're going to make it. But my point is, basketball is pretty sound. We know what we're going to get here, and we prepared for this well. And And I'll tell you what, I'm going to know where I stand early on, Andrew, because I love Karis LeVert and Jared Allen. I loved them the first game. They did well. They didn't crush it, but that's because it was a wicked blowout.
Yep.
It was a huge blowout. They didn't see the floor in the fourth quarter, and it was skewed. Washington's defense is terrible, and even with these guys that are in now, it's just not a good defense. The pace, these two teams have absolutely nothing to play for other than just showing out. And I just think LeVert he's going to be my best player on the slate. I'm just going with it. I think Jared Allen will get enough run without having to look over his shoulder at DeAndre Jordan to get it done. And on the other side of the ball, I'm going back to Roy Hashimura. I think he's the best player on this team right now with the guys sitting out. That kid can play, and he can do it in many ways. Threes, rebounds, blocks. I mean, he basically plays a 4-5 some of the time, and he was thought of as a 3-4 initially. So I love Hashimura. Right off the bat, if you're listening to this podcast, you've got three of my core plays. So I think if you start with those three, get out to a fast start, that should give a lot of you guys a real good jump. And, with late swap, if you see that goes great in that first game and you want to see the rest of what we're building out, come and check us out at dfscoachtalk.com and jump in, because a lot of the other plays and key plays, we'll touch on some of them in this podcast, but the rest of them will be released in our Discord 30 minutes before lock, and that the Discord is for members only. So jump in and join that, and hopefully this three-man stack that I'm going to use in game one really propels the lineup to get it done.
Yeah, last comment on Rui.
Yeah,
I like his price a lot better on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's 7.4. On FanDuel, he's only 6.1.
Yeah. I mean, he's load and lock in on FanDuel, and maybe just a cash game play on DraftKings, but I'm still working on that because of the pricing. Usually, I like to take a little more flyers on the GPPs and get a little more value. So. All right, game two is the Portland Trailblazers at the Boston Celtics. It is a 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central game. MyBookie.ag has the Celtics as a 4-point favorite, and the over-under in this game, not bad, 229.5. This should be a fun game to watch. Some great players. We still have Kemba on a minutes restriction. But everything else looks like it's opening up pretty well here. What do you got?
Yeah, I think this really will be a fun one to watch. Portland really went after it in that first game. Lillard played 44 minutes. I know it was overtime, but CJ McCollum played 45. Yeah. Melo got 37. So, I mean, you're looking at 40 minutes in regulation for Lillard and CJ. And that's what you want here. We want guys who are going to play big minutes. The stars, these teams that need to win, want to win, are going to go after it. So Lillard is certainly in consideration for me. Now, CJ McCollum, he crushed the Celtics for 55 fantasy points first time out, but Lillard did not play. So just keep that in mind if you're looking back.
That's a big, big difference in usage. It's like a 12-point bump for McCollum when Lillard's out. It's nuts.
Exactly. So I'm looking at Lillard here as my preference for the Portland guards. Zach Collins is still a nice price. He's 3.4 on DraftKings, a little bit more on FanDuel, 4.6. But I do like him on DraftKings. And then with the Celtics, Kemba, they did say his minutes are going to go up a little bit, but he's still going to be on a restriction. He played 19 minutes in the first game. I would expect him to play no more than 24. So I do think there's some opportunity here with the other guys. So I looking at these matchups here, I figure looking at Hayward, Tatum, and Jaylen Brown, trying to figure out who's Melo going to guard. And I have a feeling that Melo is going to be on Tatum. I think Zach Collins is going to guard Jaylen Brown, I think Lillard and CJ are going to guard Kemba and Hayward. So I think Melo is going to be left to try to slow down Tatum. And Tatum did not play well in the first game here, but that was Milwaukee, and they always do a good job wrapping him up. So I may look at Tatum here in some GPPs. I think he'll be lower owned because he didn't play well in the first game. His price is a little bit high, to be honest. On DraftKings, it's 8.2, but he has crushed Portland here before. So I may get a little Tatum as my favorite guy. I do like Hayward as well, but I think Tatum is the one where I may take a flyer in GPP.
Interesting. This game I think it's going to be a great game. And I guarantee you what Coach Stotts told his players before that first game, and that's the way they played, is he probably told them these 8 games are like single playoff games each time, because we have to win basically 8-0, 7-1 to get into these playoff runs. So they came out with an urgency. I'll tell you, the guy that absolutely blew me away was Yusuf Nurkic. He was fantastic. And if he didn't foul out, he would have had boxcar numbers for people. He played really well. And his counterpart here, Daniel Tice, was terrific too. I mean, watching him play, he hustles, gets to every ball, finishes. I was so impressed with both of those guys. But, depending on the builds and the pricing, they're different on each site. But I think Nurkic looks terrific. And I think that the fact that he had to rest that whole end of the fourth quarter and overtime is going to be a positive for him for this game. I think he's terrific. Nurkic will make a lot of my lineups at center. I think he's in great shape. He lost weight. He's hungry. And I think Tice is scrappy, but, Boston does get beat up a little bit by centers from time to time. Not as much now that Kanter's not playing, because Kanter's the Olay defense man, but he'll still get some minutes in there. So Nurkic is my favorite trailblazer. I love Dame. I always love Dame. I think, believe it or not, you're going to think I'm crazy, but the fact that Kemba is on a limits restriction hurts me as far as wanting to play Damian, because when they bring Wanamaker in and Marcus Smart guards the point guard, either one of those guys, they are a pain in the neck defensively, especially Marcus. If I'm gonna pick up game at the Y and I have every NBA player to pick from, I'm taking Marcus Smart, because he'll kill you to win. Right. You love, as a coach, you love Marcus Smart on your team. He'll guard anybody. He even guards the big guys. Yep. So I respect that tremendously, and that's the reason that I'm not real comfortable with Lillard and McCollum at that high price. I don't want to chase the points from last game, and if they're going to be guarded by Smart and Wanamaker a good chunk of the game, I think that will hold them in check, and I think that they'll end up going more inside. As you mentioned, I think Collins is a great play where he's still cheap on fantasy draft. Is that correct, or DraftKings? Which one is it? Okay. Yep. Take him in DraftKings. And FanDuel, he's a little too much, but I like the bigs. I like Collins and Nurkic here as the best plays for Detroit. Don't chase the points with Carmelo. I know he had a great first game. He hit 2 threes to tie that game at the end that were just awesome, but he's not a periphery guy stats-wise. I think maybe this last game might have been like his high point of what he can do at this point in his career. Just my suggestion. I wouldn't chase the money, chase the DFS points there. On the Boston side, like I said, Tice played his heart out. But again, you don't want to take guys coming off sort of ceiling type games that you anticipate. So I'm not crazy about him in this matchup. Just for taking up that center spot is a little rough when you got 12 teams playing. Hayward is okay. I'm not ecstatic about him, but I mean, I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to put him in there. Jason Tatum, man, he is the weirdest dude. He has had games this season, 1 for 17. I remember the one day you played him. I think he was 0 for 11 or something, and just some craziness. You were like, how is that possible? And then he has games where he pours in 40. So a lot of it has to do with the matchup. I think that Portland does not match up well with Jason Tatum because the guys you mentioned, who's going to guard them? Lillard and McCollum too small. Anthony can't defend. I don't know if you want to take Collins. They want to take him that far away from the basket. So the odd matchup for them is Tatum. And I think I'm not afraid of that. It was more, what did he end up? 2 for 18 or something?
Something like that, yep.
And the one bucket, he never touched it. It got tipped in by two opposite players. Anyway, I'm not afraid to take him. He's expensive, so it takes a set because a lot of people that got burned by him the first night aren't going to touch him. But he's my favorite Celtic today. And I've seen him go 1 for 17 and then come back and go, 12 for 18 kind of thing. So I think he's the focal point with Kemba getting less minutes. And, so the Nurkic, Tatum, one-offs for each side are really what I like the best.
Let me add one more thing here. If you're playing multiple lineups, you mentioned Cantor. We always try to attack him. And Whiteside is going to be coming off the bench against Cantor. Now, Whiteside didn't play much in the first game. Nurkic had the bigger minutes, didn't do much. He's got to be sulking a little bit because he's coming off the bench. But if Nurkic is a little bit tired, and especially if he's one of your core plays, and again, if you're going to use multiple lineups, get one lineup with Whiteside, because if he goes off against Cantor, which he can if he gets closer to 24 minutes, that could be a real nice GPP play.
That's a good point. That is a good point. All right, we go on to game 3. It is the San Antonio Spurs at the Memphis Grizzlies, 4 Eastern, 3 Central.
Yep.
Another interesting game, sort of a must-win. Memphis is starting to scramble here. They need to throw some wins on the board. Memphis is a 4.5-point favorite, and this is the second highest total. Or no, I'm sorry, it's the third highest total. Our last 2 games are higher. This is 234.5. So there's points in every game. 229 is the lowest, or 228.5 is the lowest on the board. So we're going to need some big numbers to take these contests down for sure. All right, so break this game down for us, Andrew.
Well, you're right. I mean, Memphis, they need to win, and they've got a nice matchup here. San Antonio's 26th defensively. And I was on John Morant and Triple J in the first one. They both paid off. Do I dare go back to Triple J again? I don't know. I don't know if I can. Let's see here. I think John Morant is a nice safe option. Triple J. I just don't know if I can do it again. He's on DraftKings, he's 5.2. Whiteside is 5.3. I just compare him because I just mentioned Whiteside. So I think I like him a little bit more than Whiteside. But, looking at bigs in that price range, we've already talked about Jared Allen at 5.6. I certainly prefer him. So probably won't get quite as much exposure to Triple J. On the San Antonio side, Lonnie Walker, he was a great value. The first one out, I'll go back there again at only 3.5. He took 12 shots, which I really like. And so I prefer him, and I'm not going to chase Derek White at 6.2. It could very easily be that, his minutes and usage go way down. DeJounte Murray's minutes and usage go way up. He only had 21 minutes in the first game with 5 fouls. So if he stays healthy and in there with no foul trouble, I like DeJounte Murray a little bit better than White, and I am going to get some exposure to these San Antonio smaller players because of all the guys who are out. And you got to mention, actually, that DeMar DeRozan had 48 fantasy points against Memphis, averaged that, but he's really expensive at 7.6. So for me in this game, I think John Morant's my favorite guy on Memphis. Lonnie Walker is my favorite guy on the Spurs.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, this is a very intriguing game here. I think, DeJounte Murray is a guy that I'm looking at in the fact that foul trouble held him back. I think that ballooned up White's stats a little bit, and even Walker slightly. So for me, I think DeJounte Murray can really take over a game. Ja isn't quite a great defender yet. He's crafty and he's handsy, but I think Murray can do well against him. They both have tons of speed, but, I think Murray's, believe it or not, my favorite Spur here. You know what's amazing to me, though, is did you ever think you'd see DeMar DeRozan starting at the 4? But that's what he's doing.
That's
Isn't that
today's
nuts?
NBA. Yep.
It is really crazy. So here's my question on the other side of the ball. How are they going to guard Triple J with that lineup? Is it Lonnie Walker that guards him? I don't know. He's going to have a massive size advantage because Pirtle has to play Joval.
Yep.
So that leaves gigantic Jaren Jackson Jr. What is he, 10? 6? He's up there, and I don't know who's going to guard him. So he
what
was
they might
feeling
do?
it.
Don't be shocked if they start Rudy Gay.
That's true. Pop may do that just because of the matchup differential. And the guy that would probably go to the bench might be Lonnie Walker.
Yep.
I'm just saying. I don't know that. I didn't read anything about that.
Yep.
But just something to be aware of is if they do stick with this lineup, I think Triple J is the play of the game. And I know it's crazy because I even on the Discord I DM'd you and said, I want to play Triple J. I think I'm going to play Triple J. And then I sent one back saying, I'm just so afraid he's going to get in foul trouble.
Right.
I mean, yesterday was the flip the coin and lose the flip of the coin on the tight ones. Today, I'm turning all that around.
Yes.
So anyway, my take on this game is Memphis can take advantage of Jackson or even Brandon Clark when he's in there with Joval at center, because unless the Spurs do adjust and get Rudy playing alongside Jakob, I think they're going to have trouble stopping the Grizz inside. So that's I like Murray. I like Triple J, and if Triple J gets in foul trouble, I'll post my red face guy with the swearing words crossed out like I always do. All right. Let's move on to the next game. It is 6 p.m. Eastern. They have all the games staggered again, which is like it feels like I'm watching the NCAA tournament, I swear to God.
Yeah, you're right.
So 6 p.m. Sacramento, Orlando. It's 5 p.m. Central. And the MyBookie.ag line on this Sacramento game is tight. It's Orlando minus 2.5. And I correct myself. The lowest over-under is not 229.5 Boston. It's this game. And as I spoke, it went down 0.5 point. So the red symbol on mybookie.ag just jumped in, and it's 227.5. So that is the lowest. And Orlando likes to control the pace. Sacramento likes to move the ball. How is this one going to play out?
Well, it's a good question. Fox and Bielitsa really had excellent games against Orlando the first time out.
No kidding.
And Fox was so aggressive in this opener.
Can I say one thing real quickly?
Sure.
Because I forgot, and it's an important point. De'Aaron Fox went completely off when they played the Spurs, and he did that against DeJounte Murray and Derek White, who are supposed to be outstanding defenders, and he got Murray in foul trouble. So if you think that Ja Morant is comparable to De'Aaron Fox in that sense, obviously that gave the Spurs trouble, and it's something to keep in mind. So your Ja play might be, well done. So
yeah,
anyway,
exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that. That did cross my mind as well. So here with Fox, I mean, DJ Augustine started the first game, and Fultz came off the bench. I think Fox can, have his way again with those guys. He is a little bit pricey at almost $8K on DraftKings. I do also still like Bogdanovich at only $5K, 6 for 11 on 3-pointers. So he's stroking it. For Orlando, Evan Fournier would be the one-off for me. He's a guy that I don't usually get right, but 25 points and 6 assists when he played Sacramento earlier in the season. So I may get some exposure to him and just hope that he gets more minutes. He only played 24 minutes in the opener. We talked about how Coach Clifford wants to balance the minutes, but maybe if he bumps up a little bit, then he can really pay off value. Vucevic to me is too expensive on DraftKings. He's 8.7. And then again, multiple lineups. One off would be Jonathan Isaac. He only played 16 minutes last time, but if he gets closer to 20 or 24, I don't see anybody from Sacramento who's a really good matchup for him. You're looking at the bigs off the bench. It's Harry Giles. You mentioned Jabari Parker might play. I think he can do some damage against that bench. So again, not my favorite play, but a potential one-off if you're playing multiple lineups.
This is an easy one for me, Andrew. I mean, I tried to slice and dice to find a one-off here. I hate this game. I mean, not only is it the lowest total in Vegas, Orlando's going to try to slow the ball down, which they will. They play slow. And the defensive matchups don't fit. The benches, I just don't like this game, and it's going to be a full pass for me.
Okay.
All right, we have 2 games left, and they're both, exciting games. This is the game of the day, without question. It's at 8:30 p.m., 7:30 Central game. It's a feature game on ABC television, and it's going to be a fun one. We've got the Milwaukee Bucks at the Houston Rockets, and right now the Bucks are a 4.5-point favorite. And listen to this number, since it has changed twice. When we came on the air, it was 240. Then it went to 240.5. Now it's at 241. So it's trending upward. This is the big national TV game. Everybody's fired up for this game. And there's so many explosive players here. Dude, I don't even know where to start. How do you see this game? There's an implied total, just so you know how big this one is. Implied total for Milwaukee's 123, and for the Rockets, it's 119. So this game is going to be a shootout, according to Vegas.
Yeah.
You don't seem that excited.
No, I am. I was just checking. I wanted to make sure I had the total right from Houston's first game. Against Dallas, the total was 302. Went to overtime, but
please don't bring that game up, because I will swear on the air. I will throw out some cuss words that you haven't heard before, because that was brutal. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess I would play the over as well if I were going to play the total. But for me, as much as I like the total, I like these star players. My primary build, I think I'm just going for the value players out of this game. Dante DiVincenzo, I think this is a perfect setup for him. He didn't play when they played on opening night. He's 5.6. He only took 8 shots in the first game against the Celtics. I think he'll do more here in this wide open, fast-paced game. So I like him. And believe it or not, I'm looking at Brook Lopez as I sort of circled back through this slate the second time. I made a note on him, just thinking about that first game. And we do have to talk about the first game, even though it's painful for you, because remember what Porzingis did to Houston? He went 39-16.
Well, they don't have a center, man.
Exactly.
I mean, they don't have any big at all.
And Porzingis went 3 for 8 from deep. Now we know Brook Lopez doesn't have the skill of Porzingis, but he obviously has that same profile of a big who likes to shoot threes.
Yeah.
And I see him doing, having a similar profile and potential outcome. Not that he's going to get 39-16, but at 4.9K, I like that as I don't think he's going to be a big target for most folks. So those are my 2 primary targets from Milwaukee. On the Houston side, again, looking at the value, Covington, 6.4 is a nice, solid price on DraftKings. He went 1 for 9 on 3-pointers in the first game. If he can just shoot a little bit better.
He was 0 for 8, by the way. He hit the big one at the end.
So if he can shoot a little bit better, we know he's going to continue to give us the rebounds and the blocks and the steals. So he's my first target there. And then House, they priced him up to 4.4. He went 6 for 12 from deep. He's now in that really question mark pricing. Do we go back to him or not? So in that 4K range from this game, I do prefer Brook Lopez. I mean, I'm going to have to build a game stack lineup here where I get Giannis and Harden, Westbrook, but again, I'm going for these mid-tier guys on my primary build.
Interesting. A couple comments I wanted to make. What did you say about DiVincenzo early on when you were commenting?
That I think he's going to do much better in this matchup. Wide open, fast paced. He only took 8 shots against Boston. I think he'll get more shots and be more productive.
Okay, because here are my questions. I'll make a few comments on a couple players, but DiVincenzo pretty much split the game with George Hill, and that's the death sentence for me. I hate when any splitting just doesn't work for me. And I feel that Brook Lopez is now splitting the game with his twin brother Robin. Mm-hmm. Robin stepped up, hit some threes. I mean, he almost looks as good as his brother. So whenever I smell a little bit of a split minutes, it really raises a red flag for me. The Wes Matthews, Troy Brown, all the different guys they play, Ilyasova and all those guys all across the board. I just don't feel comfortable with those guys either. So it's really a lot of the key guys from Milwaukee being Middleton and Antetokounmpo, I believe is the way I say it, always wrong. But those two guys, are certainly something you have to really look at strongly here. I think there are some key players from this game. I think you have to spend some salary here just because I don't see this game blowing out. I think you're going to see a lot of points. And I do have 2 or 3 guys from this game that I am going to fill out my roster with that I think will be key plays. But I'm going to save those for our members at DFS Coach Talk. So if you want to get the final Bucks Rockets breakdown, join us in Discord at dfscoachtalk.com. Just become a member and you'll get all of those final lineups. We love to see the DFS Coach Talk board badge on all the boards on each site. And I think this game may be pivotal in having those show up. So I'm excited for that game. I'm certainly going to watch it, at least the first part of it, until I switch over to the barn burner Mavericks Suns, which is the last game on the card. It's a 9 p.m. start. It's a late night sweat game, 8 p.m. Central. You got the Dallas Mavericks at the Phoenix Suns, and the MyBookie.ag has the Dallas Mavericks, who, if they didn't have to play the last 5 minutes of every game, would have like the second best record in the league, but that's another story. They are -6, and the over-under in this game is 236. So it's very solid, second highest on the board. 2 teams that definitely run and gun. Phoenix is playing loose, looking to score, and Mavericks now have to get serious, and they need to get some wins. They're trying to avoid having to play the Clippers in the first round. So this game has a lot of intrigue, and not because I'm a Mavericks fan. I just think that, when you saw that score, did you know that was the highest halftime score, combined total, of 2 teams since 1990?
Wow, I know I heard them say that it was the highest this season. I didn't know that it went back that far.
I couldn't believe it. I was shocked, to be honest with you, but it was stupid. Was it 85-75? I think it was.
It felt like an all-star game.
I think it was. It was 160 or 260 total. Mind-bending. But, defense is a nice option. I'm not sure why teams don't want to use it. But, all right, give us the skinny here.
Well, I'm sorry to say it, but I don't think I'm going to get much exposure to your Mavericks here. Okay. This is probably one of the teams that I'm just going to basically fade. Porzingis and THJ haven't done well against Phoenix. I don't think Mr. Burke is going to repeat that 31-point performance.
If anybody plays Trey Burke, talk about chasing the points. Now, I know he's dirt cheap, but that was the game of his career. Yeah. I mean, that was even a better game than he had at Michigan in college. He went berserk.
Don't remind me of that one, please. So that's the thing for me on Dallas. I'm basically going to fade them. I am going to get some exposure to Phoenix. Booker and Ayton have both done well against Dallas, and they're in that 8K range on DraftKings, so a lot more affordable. Ayton surprised everybody by actually showing up 24, 12, and 3 in the first one, despite not having any cardio back in April, May, and June.
I think he heard the podcast and
Yeah.
he gave me the double bird, man.
Yeah.
Take that, coach. And
Yeah.
okay, now I got you, boy.
Right.
The bottom line is, how bad a shape can you get in when you're like 21, for God's sakes?
True.
What was I thinking?
Well, plus he had time here in July to get into shape, so he took advantage of. Yeah, he took advantage of the bubble, and he's doing his thing. So I'm looking at those two guys. I'll have some exposure to them.
This game's tough for me. I like one player for sure, and it's Devin Booker. And the reason I do, and the reason I'm willing to spend up here, is they're not playing JJ Barea, who's scrappy and causes trouble for some of the points and twos that shoot. He's just a reach-in guy. He hasn't been getting minutes. And the key guy that could contain Booker is Jalen Brunson, and he's lost for the season. So the fact that Curry or a combination of Delonte Wright, etc., are going to try to guard Booker, it does not sit well with me. So I think Booker could have a big game. I think he's the top play on the Suns' side. I'm not afraid of going to DeAndre Ayton either. I know that it looks like a chase, and I fade him the first game, but if he's in that kind of condition, centers still hurt the Mavs because they generally will try with, since the injuries and such, they'll sometimes just play Maxi Kleber at center, or Porzingis will shift to center. They may bring in Boban, who had a real nice stretch of the last game, to play a little bit. But I think DeAndre Ayton is just the power centers like that you can just go to the rim and rock it, give the Mavs trouble. So as crazy as it sounds, it's against the Mavs, and it's a guy I've been trashing. But I like DeAndre Ayton. I like Devin Booker. Devin Booker is my top play there. The Mavericks side, Carlisle uses his bench immensely. They rotate a ton of guys. I didn't really like the way Luka looked in the first game. I know he had almost a triple-double, but he just looked a little off. I mean, he shot a couple air balls. Defensively, he wasn't moving quite as well. And he's so expensive, it's just a hard one to chew. And I think he'll get a lot of ownership because people are going to want him in that late night sweat. They figure Phoenix is an up-tempo team. By the way, the implied totals in that game are Dallas 120.5 and the Suns 114.5. So 120.5 is a lot of points. With Baines coming off the bench for Ayton, I think they can do some good on Porzingis to slow him down a little bit. Certainly, hard to say, why would you want to play Curry really or Hardaway if they really are going to utilize a lot of minutes for Burke, and some of the other Delonte Wright played a lot. It's just too much of a rotation for me. So I don't believe I'm saying this, but I think I'm going to completely fade the Mavs with you and play a couple of Suns. But you know what? You got to set everything aside in DFS. Like I've said a billion times, don't play your favorite players on your favorite team. Don't play the late night game because it's a sweat game. Just look at every team in a neutral way, and that's how you can build your best lineup. So unfortunately, I'll be rooting with my heart one way, but my DFS and wallet the other way.
Yeah, and speaking of the eye test with Luka, I happened to be watching after the game as they showed the players walking up the ramp towards the locker rooms. And I know it's an uphill ramp, but he was walking so gingerly. I mean, he looked like...
He looked sore.
He looked sore. He was like just barely walking slowly. It was almost like what you might expect LeBron would walk like after Game 7 of the finals in like his 20th season. Because you got to, all the wear and tear on his body, but not young Luka. Young Luka, you'd think, would be running up that ramp, ready to go. But he looked really tired after that big minutes, big first outing. So he's one of those guys that I think it might really doom him in terms of fantasy value here in Game 2.
Not to be negative on our listeners that are soccer fans, though, but he grew up also playing soccer in Europe, and he is famous for, he gets bumped, grazed in the cheekbone, and he goes down like somebody ripped off his face, rolling around like they got to bring the stretcher out, and then he gets up and hits 3 threes in a row. So I don't really follow his body language that much, just because he's got that mentality. It agitates the heck out of me, by the way. I mean, how you watch his games, 50% of the time after the play, he's grabbing his face or his head, or he's trying to shake off and limp something off, and just play the game, you young man. Good Lord. But, he's capable of coming out, and Rubio wants no part of him whatsoever. So, he could come out there and just blow up too. So, especially now that I ripped on him, he's probably going to
yes, exactly
50-point triple-double. But yeah, I'll tell you though, it's a great card. It's challenging salary-wise trying to build a lineup, because if you want to put a star or two in there, it puts you in a pretty tough spot. For me, this card, there's not as many standout value plays.
Agreed. Completely agree. That's why I'm looking at more of a balanced build, and really going to be looking at the news here. I'd like to get some late news and get at least one more value play open up, because if guys like Lonnie Walker don't start, as we're predicting that he might not, there's one less value guy to play. We need the news to go in the opposite direction to get more exposure to some of these studs.
Yeah. And how about the matchups? We talked a little bit about that Mavericks game. Who are they going to match up with? They ended up putting Covington on Luka. I thought that was pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. We didn't see that one coming. And the only time they ran the double at Harden, it worked for a while in the third quarter. But then they went back away from it. I don't know, Carlisle just befuddled me with his strategy there. But, the question is, will the Bucks and that awesome defense run a double at Harden? That's another thing you got to think of too. Wesley Matthews is going to guard Harden and nosed on the ball. He's an on-the-ball defender. But he's not as good as he used to be, and nobody can stop Harden. So my thing is, if you do like Harden today, I don't think you have to worry as much about the double, because I think they'll try to guard him heads up with Matthews and then just try to outscore him in the paint. But just something I wanted to throw in there, because strategic aspects of how coaches approach things. The other thing is, though, Coach Bud's one of the better coaches in the league. So, who knows how they're going to do that. I mean, I would force Westbrook to shoot the ball from outside personally. Yeah. He just can't shoot it out there.
He doesn't want to.
No, and if you let Westbrook and Harden drive like Dallas did 80 million times, they're going to just murder you. They're going to finish at the rim. They're probably two of the best, maybe four I can think of, finishers at the rim in the entire league. Literally. So got to keep them away from the basket. But great intrigue today, great strategy, tough builds. You got to really dig in here. So, spend some time with it. It's going to be a fun slate. I want to thank our two presenting sponsors, mybookie.ag. Go there, use the promo code CoachTalk, and get 100% of sign-up bonus up to $1,000 and a $25 free play. And go to tvg.com or dfscoachtalk.com and click on risk-free $300 bet, and that's exactly what it is. Our charity of choice here is mambaon3.org, MAMBAONTHREE.org. Wonderful charity support set up by the Bryant family. And let's close out by sharing our Twitter handles, because where you can find us on Twitter is important, because we're going to be, from now until these games tip, we're going to be putting up notes, seeing if there's any lineup changes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At DFS Coach Talk, very simple. That's where you can find all of us. I'm at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. Andrew is at Language Olympic. Shane is at DET Sports Shane. And Freddie is at Freddie Mills 7. So catch us there, follow us throughout. We'd love to have you join in with the best community that I know of in the DFS space. And I think it'll be fun, man. Any final words from you, Andrew?
Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and have a great Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. 6 NBA games. You got to love it. They're staggered throughout the day. So get the easy chair ready, get the popcorn out, whatever, and there's not going to be any breaks. And, what I love, notorious. I drive my son crazy. I refuse to watch a commercial.
Right.
So with all these staggered games, we're basically getting 2 games at a time. So you can stagger, but go back and forth and watch both games and not have to check commercials. And you'd be surprised how many commercials there are. So you can catch a good chunk of all the games, which I certainly will be doing. I even bought an extra pack of batteries because I know I'm going to smoke out my remote control.
That's right. You do not want to lose batteries on a day like this.
Oh, that's panic, complete panic at that point. Meltdown.
Yep.
So, all right, man. Well, thanks. Great show, Andrew. Solid picks yesterday. Let's both crush it today big time and take some stuff down. I'm going to hit cash games hard. I know Andrew's just crushing and multi-entering some of these GPPs. So between the two of us, let's try to steer you to a really awesome day. So thanks again for spending some time with us. We'll catch you again tomorrow for more NBA, and we'll go through it. We're going to have basketball every day. So, and we do have a 7-day-a-week podcast in front of the paywall here at DFS Coach Talk. So thank you again, and let's crush it in DFS.